You ready?
Here you go, bro.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the Backyard Basketball Podcast, presented by the Ordinary Podcasting Network. I'm here with Christian Steck. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, buddy. How about yourself?
Doing really well. Glad to be back. Glad to be talking about some dismal basketball teams today. So we've got two teams we're going to talk about. One team's kind of pacing around, not really sure what's going to happen, and the other team's just they're just set ablaze, and they're burning down. Which one do you want to start with?
let's save the burning house that everybody is still living in for the end. I think that's let's start with the pacing team. Great play on words.
All right, great.
You did there.
Yeah.
people can't guess what team we're talking about.
So if you haven't guessed, we're talking about the Orlando Magic. Actually, we're not. We're talking about the team that's sitting just above them, 13th in the East currently. They're 10-16. Funny thing though is they're still only 7.5 games back.
I know
they're not going to be able to probably make the playoffs. But are they gonna stay down in this neck of the woods? Are they gonna stay at the bottom?
Well, I thought at least a play in. I thought this team was gonna be way better. By the way, we're talking about the Indiana Pacers.
Yes, indeed.
If nobody clued in yet. So the Pacers, I don't know. This news just kind of honestly shocked me. I feel like you're pulling the plug on this, and you even haven't really given it any breadth to breathe, So
what news? It came out today that the Pacers are looking to blow things up. Basically everyone's available.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Rick Carlisle just got there. I mean, I guess it's not funny, but what else? How else are you gonna? How long have they been in a rebuild? They've been in a rebuild forever. Forever.
I think, last time they actually competed, Paul George was there, right?
Paul George, Danny Granger.
Yeah.
Roy Hibbert.
And Danny Granger was the guy when Paul George was coming up before his injuries. So, I mean, that team was competitive. They were a playoff team, weren't they?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe I remember in my early days of watching the NBA, seeing that team. And then prior to that, you had the mid 2000s, which was if nobody has seen the doc yet about the Malice in the Palace, not only about the experience of the event, this is on Netflix, by the way, but I garnered a way deeper understanding and perspective of that Pacers team and really how good they were. They could have won it all. They were just as good as that Detroit Pistons team in 04-05.
So you're saying though, that they've been in a rebuild since they lost Reggie Miller?
Pretty much. I want, honestly, you had Paul George come in and that was something that was working and brewing and coming up. And Danny Granger's career was obviously cut short due to injuries. And Roy Hibbert found himself, unfortunately, on the exit out of a league that just didn't need that kind of player anymore. Mm-hmm. So it was a team that it was oh, do we have something? Oh, no, we didn't. And then Paul George was I want out because it wasn't going anywhere. And then ever since then, it's just been a team that's kind of been spinning its wheels. But you have, when you say that Rick Carlisle is one of the top 5 coaches in the NBA,
undeniably,
just because of his vast experience, he's won a championship.
Yep.
And the guy has been successful. He has, formulas and strategies to be successful. And you just bring him in. This makes me feel, hearing this news, that it's Carlisle has a vision, and then whatever this team was prior to Carlisle is a different vision, or maybe the players can't communicate the same way that Rick Carlisle wants to communicate. And so you're just going to do a clean slate. You just brought Karis LeVert in last time.
I know. And I feel that's the beginning of this quote unquote rebuild when they made that move. Now, Miles Turner's been there for a long time, so I can understand, try to get some assets off of that, but do they need to completely clean house here?
Karis LeVert's on the trading block too.
Yeah,
You
that's
just brought him on.
man.
Let's him go. Let's Miles Turner go. What's his name? PJ Tucker was
TJ Warren.
TJ Warren was like, I'm going to be a free agent. I'd like to stay.
He's expressed that he wants to stay. TJ McConnell is out for the season with some sort of injury and surgery. Yeah. But
he just got the answer.
I feel like if it's not, and then we haven't even touched on Domantas Sabonis, who was an all-star last
best
year.
Player. He is the best player on that team, hands down.
So he could be a really, really enticing asset at the deadline, if not sooner, for a team to inject some championship pedigree.
Dude, I want him so bad.
And by you mean that green team of yours?
I want him so. We'll give you Williams. We'll give you Williams. We'll give you a bunch of picks.
That could be
a couple other young pieces.
Honestly, dude, that could be a really, really enticing destination for a lot of these players for Brad Stevens to go after.
Yeah, man.
Sabonis, Miles Turner, Karis LeVert. Malcolm Brogdon. The one guy I do not think that they will let go of is their rookie, Chris Duarte. If LeVert ends up going, that Duarte will end up being the cornerstone of this future.
For sure. Yeah. No, they're gonna keep him.
He's a special player.
It's with LeVert too. I don't understand. LeVert is a special player, and whatever team he ends up on is going to be really good.
You know what it makes me nervous about is that either they're just saying that to get people interested and looking, hey, look over here, we've got all these nice pieces. Just saying, hey, we're sitting at the bottom, just saying, what could you give us? If it's not that, and they're saying still, we want to get rid of LeVert. My fear here is that his injuries are not far from over. Like he had a very severe injury setback, treatment, lots of rehab.
Well, and then he went in for the physical, and he had some sort of like early stage cancer or something.
That's what I mean. So he had some really intense treatments going on. And I'm not saying that that's impeding his basketball play. But at the same time, if you're personnel now, you're seeing this guy and you're going, okay, well, we really, really liked him when we went after him.
It's been a while since we've seen him
actually play.
Yeah, and play well. He's been okay on the Pacers to start, but
he has. Yeah, he has. It's hard because this team, they don't really have the kind of makeup that makes up what Rick Carlisle's teams can do yet. So maybe they're doing what other teams don't, which is actually make the move when you feel like it's time to do it. I feel like so often you see teams just kind of sit and ponder, and then it's too late. So the pacing needs to end.
It's aggressive. I think obviously, I don't know if Ben Simmons, quote unquote, is
you said it. I didn't say
rebuild. Well, we're gonna talk about him a lot here in a little bit, dude. So let's just get the audience warmed up to this. There's actually Ben Simmons movement happening here, people.
I don't know about movement.
I don't know.
Sitting on his couch for the last.
The kindling is kind of reignited. So we're something's cooking.
Hey, if Chris is wanting to talk about Simmons, something's happening.
It's serious. So. It's not our off season where we're just like trying to think of things to talk about. I feel like this is very like preemptive. You're jumping the gun. There's a lot to suss out. I think in the East, even though, it is really competitive and it's better than we've seen it in a lot of recent years, honestly, you're probably, somewhere 7 through 10, realistically, probably, yeah, you're right. Like a play-in team to even make it to the playoffs. So I guess, if you're bringing in a new coach and you're looking at the landscape, probably from their perspective, this is honestly maybe a really great opportunity to strike, because it feels like, there isn't a lot of movement happening, but you never know in instances like this, when like the waters are pretty quiet and still. And when you do something, and as history has expressed, it can be far more rewarding, these kind of plays,
moving players too early can also be a detriment, because like I said, they're only sitting 7.5 games back from first. So they could go on a 3 or 4 game win tear and all of a sudden be back into playoff contention. I don't think that they will maintain that position by the end of 82 games, but who knows? Maybe this is just enough of a spark for that team to go, hey, no, we are better than this. We are much better than this. And potentially there's a moment in their schedule that, that actually helps them, right? Who knows? I just think it's too early for that. I think it's too early for them to blow everything up.
That's a great argument. That's a great argument. And I definitely see our perspective, but I'm getting the inkling, because I don't think that's maybe necessarily the full truth here, that this has got to be, the fact that this news is becoming present. There's been something I feel like brewing underneath the scenes, maybe even from game one, maybe even the preseason, maybe even training camp. And it just makes me have all eyes point to Rick Carlisle. Everything's pointing to Rick Carlisle, I feel, looking at this, because of his emergence coming to the team and how quickly into the season we're seeing such a drastic statement. It's one thing to say like, oh, the Pacers are maybe exploring some movement, but they're literally saying, nope, we're going to rebuild and all of our best players are on the table. We're making that public to everyone. So I feel like there's a conflict of personnel that's happening here. It's like, oh man, why is his name escaping me right now? When he came into New York and he's trying to implement the triangle. Famous coach of the Lakers, Kobe
Jackson.
Yeah.
Phil Jackson.
So, Phil Jackson had a very, peculiar and unique style and plays. And if it didn't fit with those kind of players, and maybe there's a certain identity that Rick Carlisle or certain vision that he has, that it just doesn't fit with the cast for the show that you have on this Pacers team as it stands. And so just that simple fact is like, we have to, move on, I guess. Which is crazy. It's just crazy. I don't understand it. I feel like this is one of those like grass is greener on the other side. And a lot of these players, for what you're going to get back, I don't know. These players are really good. And like whatever team gets a bonus, if say the Raptors pick up Miles Turner, I think that would be
really good.
Such a great piece for the Raptors. Are you kidding? What an amazing opportunity for Miles Turner as well, too, to literally shed off. Like for years, people have been saying Miles Turner in the trade blocks. And I'm sure that's kind of numb him.
Oh yeah. It's like Kenneth Faried.
Yeah. So like what?
And Toronto's
is a great opportunity to have that. And I feel like he plays so well with those guys. Yep. When you say,
oh, I think so. I think Miles Turner still has a lot to show, he's a dominant rebounder. He can still shoot from pretty much anywhere on the court. The speed that the Raptors have, I don't know if that necessarily will work, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it try. Remember how I said it would be great if they had like the Pacers had like a little tear there in their schedule that they could just rip off some games.
Yeah.
So there is, but it's not until like mid-February where they play some dismal teams. So they play the Wizards, who are heading in the downward direction, the Thunder, the Celtics, the Magic again, the Pistons, and then the Wizards again. The only problem with that is that's after the February 10th trade deadline. And I do not think
a dismal team.
Well, especially after the deadline when they pick up half of the Indiana Pacers. I think that these reportings about movement coming, I think the writing's already on the wall, and it's kind of just a matter of time. There's no other team right now other than maybe Sacramento that's really looking to part with a lot of their personnel. So it'd be interesting to see.
No other team, you say, besides Sacramento?
Tell me. Well, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network is excited to announce that we have launched a merch store on our website. The store is full of ordinary swag, including t-shirts, hoodies, and hats. You can pick out something awesome and support your favorite podcast today by heading over to ordinarypodcasts.com. Okay. So there's maybe just one other team, and I guess we should talk about it. So yeah, the Sacramento Kings, And just above them sit the Portland Trailblazers, who are a burning, fiery mess. And it sucks to say because I had such high hopes for this team this year. I want Damian Lillard so badly to prove all of his doubters by being a competitive team. But unfortunately, that is not what is happening. Game in and game out, they find themselves on the wrong side of the game. Again, it is early, only 9.5 games back. But when you look at the teams above them, I have a hard time seeing how any of those teams are going to slide, to make it easy for the Trailblazers. What do they do? What can they do?
They don't have any defense.
Well, they've got Norman Powell. He's defensive.
for sure. They don't have, and it's funny, Norman Powell's got great effort, but the team and the identity of it has no defensive effort. And, I think a lot of guys have been pointing that it's maybe scheme or players. Billups is saying it's effort, it's players. We just have to have more effort. I think it's honestly a bit of both.
Well, again, you find just very similar to what we were just talking about with the Pacers. You find yourself a team that is in their first year with a new coach. Yeah. They've had more success than the Pacers have and the Blazers have in recent years. I wouldn't say they've necessarily achieved all of the goals and accomplishments that they're looking to meet. The expectations are very high for this team. I don't know how it can be this bad this year.
Let alone, we haven't even talked about, for anybody who hasn't heard, some of you maybe just get all your basketball news from this pod. I think it was like last week or something, the, head executive of the Portland Trailblazers, Neil O'Shea is his name, was fired. So he didn't leave the team. He didn't step away. He was blatantly fired. And they say that the Portland Trailblazers, it was a third-party investigation into O'Shea, and they won't even release the documents for justifying the reasons why they fired him. Like, it is very, very serious, whatever the hell this guy did. Like, it's not just like, some sort of, at least in my eyes, some sort of, misconduct or, all this stuff that was happening with Sarver, and all the allegations against him. And there was a lot of stories that were being shared about Sarver and his family and his kids, and just a lot of spoiled attitude. But here there was some sort of line that has definitely been, and not saying that has, and I'm not trying to justify it has with Sarver, but I'm just saying that how the news and the media has broadcasted the Sarver incident and this one, and the amount of information that we're getting about O'Shea, there is something here that we're not even bearing witness to in the media, but it was so severe that Portland had to fire their executive. So there's a lot of drama. O'Shea was the guy that brought Billups in. And I don't know if you remember this as well too. And it honestly kind of made me, like, I had to do a lot of reading about it and try to find some sort of perspective, getting as many different resources as possible. When they brought Billups in, this whole story came up, which I was unaware of, like in the late 90s when Billups was on the Celtics, and he sexually harassed, performed sexual acts on this woman. I guess you just consider almost rape in some regards, and how it was being broadcasted even back then in the media. Drugs were involved. This woman was saying no to acts that were being performed against her. She was obviously on drugs, so it was like very incoherent about even the recollection of the event. But it was incredibly traumatizing, and then it was really hard to kind of garner some perspective of because it was a whole incident of men, and Billups was one of those individuals. Okay. And it was hard to garner what, Billups' role was in all of it. And then obviously the settlement, I think it was 97, 98, it was settled and whatnot. But this whole story came up again when Billups was hired on this position, and O'Shea sat beside Billups, and they gave a press conference to discuss, like, O'Shea was even saying that, they did, their own due diligence in the Billups hiring process and did their own investigation to make sure from like the witnesses perspective. But then news was coming out that that the woman said that the Portland never reached out to her. There was an investigation into O'Shea, and they find out that O'Shea didn't even really do anything to do some sort of investigation into Billups, into hiring him and looking at his character. And of course, my character of Billups was like definitely has shifted knowing this story, and it's so hard, when you get all this information to know the real clarity of what it was.
For sure,
and his role in it, but still, it's regardless, it is definitely damaging to his character. However, the media broadcasted Billups, whatever truth Billups wants to say in that, and then this is just. And then this whole O'Shea incident and all this is just being wrapped into this identity of this burning house in Portland. And we've got this poor, good, honest, hardworking players on this team and staff. And of course, all these other individuals who have not had success. And it's like, man, this team, all this stuff, it's not serving any of you guys. And it's so unfortunate.
Well, do you think it's all a distraction? Is that why they're losing?
It's not helping, man. I think since the get-go, I mean, it's been even on Dame's, like I remember reading things where this Billups stuff was happening. And then, the media was asking Dame what he thought of Billups. And then Dame had to walk this fine line of like, well, I had to do my own research, which he said. And then it was like, having to have some sort of faith and trust in Billups, and where he's coming from in his perspective. And he
stated that he does, because it feels like the way in which he was hired, they didn't even trust the process. They just kind of went ahead with it. It didn't seem like there were any procedures in place. Even when we look back at what happened with Luke Walton, there was no procedures in place. And that's a really terrible thing.
A lot of theater. A lot of theater and a lot of performance to persuade. So it's tapping into a way that maybe we're engaging with information that affects how we feel, but they're purveying things in a way that makes it seem like that there are these, very transparent, ethical, actions, but obviously that's not happening. And it breaks the trust. It breaks the trust of the fans. It breaks the trust on so many levels. So I really feel like I definitely deeply feel for the Portland, the people that work there, the fans, all of these to be messed up. Like this is really effed up. This Neil guy, whatever the hell gone on, there's something very dark there. And it's unfortunate to think of a guy in my eyes, like Damian Lillard, who's 31, who's an incredible player, who's so selfless and has given so much to that city, to that team, to everybody. He doesn't own anyone on the Trailblazers anything,
but he has constantly told that team and that city that he cares about them and wants to win there, which is like you're saying, it's really unfortunate. And you know what, dude, I would not be at all surprised if the next president and VP of basketball operations who comes in finds a new coach. I would not be at all surprised if Billups is out in his first year.
Yeah, after the first season, I could see it. And you know what, from Billups, because it's good. Then it's a clean slate. You've got no tainted whatever, if one wants to look at it that way. But yeah, for Billups, anybody like that's listening to this, like I really recommend just read a bunch of different articles, try to get a bunch of different perspectives, and come up with your own bias and perspective, towards the man and the incident. I myself personally, I've kind of done that and come to whatever piece with it. Billups as a coach, if we just want to look at him as a coach, I think he needs a lot more experience.
So much more.
Honestly, it's a great opportunity for him. And I'd love as a player and a coach, from that fan perspective, to see him succeed in that.
But it's not working. It's just not working. Like, it doesn't matter if you like the guy or not.
And it's not just effort. I don't believe it. Like I've watched like a small handful of Portland games this season, and every time I've watched them play and looking at years past too, there is some personnel issues, because I just feel like that team is just doesn't, like Norman Powell for sure. Nurkic when he's not injured,
no, dude,
pretty good.
Yeah, he's good, but this is my point here. This team needs to figure out what they're going to do with Yusuf Nurkic. He has been injured for an extended period of time over the course of the last 4 or 5 seasons. This can't continue. This is exhausting, not only for the player himself, but for the fans and the team. The team needs him deep into the stretch. And if he's not there, then they are missing a huge piece to that puzzle. And I honestly think that it's time, he's only getting older, and that, which we all know, that just means you're even more prone to those injuries. So I really think that Nurkic is the piece here that needs to kind of get shipped out. And I would almost say that CJ McCollum becomes part of that thing, because he's a really great tandem with Damian Lillard, but you're just spinning the wheel now. It's not stopping. It's not landing on something successful. That Damian is gonna continue his all-star caliber performance year in and year out. But if he doesn't have the right pieces, they will never win a championship. So,
totally.
What is the right piece?
Okay, what do you think of this? Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, some pick swaps, whatever, with Portland for CJ McCollum.
For straight up just CJ McCollum?
So, and some picks. So I think, I don't know how some pick swaps or whatever picks need to go back and forth to make it kind of equitable. Yeah. But I think in terms of pieces, I think CJ has to move. If you're not moving Dame, it has to be CJ. And that's the first piece that I would move. And if you want, and Dame, whatever you want to take it for, there's been news coming out here this week that Dame would love to play with Ben Simmons. So there you go. And Tyrese Maxey is I was just looking this up this season. So he's a guard. He's only 21 years old, super young, and he's averaging 17.2 points per game so far this season. He's a great player. Like, he's been playing really well for Philly. So I think those are some great pieces that Portland would love to take on for giving up CJ. And what do you think?
I think it could work. I have a hard time with picks being, their first round pick is going to be very, very valuable.
This is the one thing. I don't know if Portland has a lot of picks. Like, I would have to do some research. I didn't do any looking into that.
Yeah. The piece that I get caught up on, though, is our buddy Ben Simmons. I feel like Daryl Morey kind of is enjoying this.
Of course he is.
I feel like he doesn't.
He's really that kind of guy.
Move him.
He's that kind of guy.
Well, I don't think he's doing it to out of malice necessarily.
Well, it's like, I
think he's kind of sticking it to the man, saying this isn't how this process works. So if you want to play. True. And if you're not going to, then sit, man. You're gonna sit. I'm not just gonna move you for a couple of peanuts. Now, CJ McCollum isn't a couple of peanuts, but is CJ McCollum really gonna put Philadelphia over the hump?
It's a great question. That's a very great question. I don't think CJ alone. I think Philly would have to start to look at reinventing, moving a couple pieces around, but bringing CJ in, maybe doing another move. I think you could put yourself into a position. You can make a case. So I think there's some great supporting cast and some good depth on Philly that,
maybe the Indiana gets involved.
There you go.
A Karis LeVert or Miles Turner to Portland.
Yep.
Again, the picks are what they're after.
Yeah.
So and if Portland doesn't have them, then they're gonna have to get another team involved to start shipping off some
Sacramento,
some assets. It would be really cool, man. It'd be really, really cool to see a huge blow up mid-season from some teams. I'd love to see Sacramento. I'd love to see Portland and Indiana all succeed, but the way they're going right now,
I got this weird feeling, man. Trade deadline. Yeah. Portland, Indiana, Sacramento, Philadelphia. Those are going to be our 4 hot teams of the trade deadline coming up. Whoever they engage with is, of course, too. But those 4 teams are definitely like prime position, really itching at the fence post here. Let's make some moves.
Yeah.
So.
And I really do think CJ's is going to move. And the only other caveat to that is, well, not even caveat, just Norman Powell can easily replace CJ McCollum. He doesn't have the kind of consistent shooting that CJ does, but CJ doesn't have the consistent defense that Norman has. So
they and Portland, they've got, and what's the other guy too? I'm trying to think of Aminu or something like that. He's also a good guard, or Anthony Simons. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Simons and Powell, you have those guys behind Lillard and McCollum. Like those are great supporting guard pieces that you're absolutely right could move up or interchange. You could find some flexibility there, right?
Yeah. But an injured Nurkic, a Cody Zeller, and a Larry Nance Jr., that does not cut it when it comes to bigs.
Yeah.
So and Robert Covington, who's been he's been a great utility guy. He's moved around so many different times. So here's hoping his asset value, has maintained itself throughout the years. But
you could ask for a bit more size. You want a Covington type that's got more size, like 6'9", 6'10" kind of Covington.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay. It's crazy. Like definitely nutty week, man. I feel like, we're coming up to Christmas time. People are looking at the slate and wanting to do some stuff here. I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
It's gonna happen. There's gonna be some great movement. But until then, let's do it again next week.
Sounds great, bro.
Okay.
Liquid smoke.
Thanks for today, and we'll see you later.
Ciao.
Should I do that bit again?
If you want.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and tune in next week.
Ciao.